Planning Township, Washington Township
Motion
Planning.
to adjourn.
You're out of order, sir. Meeting to order for Monday, June 16. I hear there's a big sporting event, so I guess I'll move quickly. Staff, please note the presence of a quorum.
Mr. Bunkevist. Mr. Horkay.
Here.
Mr. Khan.
Here.
Dr. Keen.
Here.
Ms. Carlson.
Here.
Mr. McCarty.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mooney.
Here.
Mr. Neal.
Present.
And Mr. Woodard. We have a quorum.
We have a quorum, lovely. Next item is that we have no changes to the agenda. Item after that, the approval of the previous meeting minutes from our June 2nd, 2025 meeting. Pleasure of the board. Moved by Mr. McCarty, seconded by Mr. Mooney. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We will now move to our very speedy rules of procedure from Mr. Collingwood.
Thank you, President. The department will introduce the petition stating when the line item was last before the Plan Commission. The Plan Commission and petitioner will then discuss the changes made to the ordinance using, that's my place. Once the discussion has finished, the department will summarize the final changes that are expected to be made prior to the petition, returning for a recommendation. Please do not disrupt the proceedings in any way. If you need to have a private discussion, then we ask that you please quietly exit the room. Please silence your devices at this time. If you must answer them, please quietly exit the room. And finally, we would like to remind those attending virtually to please mute your microphone when not speaking. Thank you very much. I believe that's it.
Very good. Thank you very much. There are no items on the consent agenda, so we will move to the grand finale already of items that we have before us, which is 2504-PUD-04, which is the Town Road Crossing PUD. We'll start with staff introduction.
Yep, thank you, President. Members of the APC, good evening for the record. Ryan Collingwood with the Community Development Department. The item back in front of you this evening is a proposed amendment to the Town Road Crossing Planning and Development District. The Town Road Crossing PUD was originally established in 2007 through approval of Ordinance 07-26. The amended real estate now comprises approximately 144 acres located south of State Road 32 and generally located northwest of Little Eagle Creek Avenue, seen within the provided vicinity map location exhibit pulled up on the screen. This item is in front of you this evening for a workshop discussion with the Plan Commission to discuss various changes to the petition since its April public hearing. Major modifications since the April 7th public hearing include increasing the number of allowable standalone restaurants with drive-through service within Area D, as well as incorporating open space ownership language that aligns with previous discussions with the Little Eagle Creek neighbors southeast adjacent of the project proposal. And I will allow the petitioner's representation to provide additional insight on any changes since the item's last meeting. Nelson Frankenberger, Jim Schinaber is here tonight representing the petition. He will be providing a brief update, or Paul Rio providing a brief update to the APC this evening. Thank you.
Excellent. Gentlemen.
Thank you. For the record, Jim Schinaber, attorney with the law firm Nelson Frankenberger, offices in Carmel. Ryan, if you could pull up,
I'll let you drive if you want.
well, you can keep it. I'm just gonna go through a few.
Just let me know.
With me tonight, on behalf of the applicant is Platinum Properties Management Company LLC. On behalf of the applicant Platinum, Paul Rio is with us. Also with us on behalf of the landowner, Brian Cardinal, is Wayne Timberman. Wayne is a commercial broker with extensive experience, also working as a consultant for Brian. I thought what I would do, if it's okay with this board, give a brief overview of this proposal. We came before you in April at the Plan Commission. We took a little pause for reasons to make sure we were coordinating with staff and with the administration on some issues. And I also know that not all the Plan Commission members were able to attend that April Plan Commission meeting. So I will go through an efficient overview, but I feel it's relevant because what we're talking about is a parcel of real estate that was rezoned to a PUD back in 2007. And so we're coming back to update that and amend it. But with that said, the northern portion of the original proposal, the original Town Road Crossing project, had area that was both south of State Road 32 in this general area, in the area that's outlined with the red dots, as well as a significant portion of the real estate north of State Road 32 was part of that original Town Road Crossing PUD. What happened more recently is all the real estate north of State Road 32 was acquired by the school corporation. They went through some zoning changes to allow the school use and the transportation facilities to be on their property. And so anything that related to the 2000 PUD that was north of State Road 32 is no longer applicable because of those changes as a result of the school coming forward. What we've done on the south side of State Road 32 is we've added approximately about 20 or so additional acres that were not included in the original PUD. So again, the red dashed line is the boundary of the real estate south of State Road 32 that was subject to the Town Road Crossing PUD. Paul Rio has put under contract additional parcels that are outlined in yellow up in this location, on the east side facing State Road 32, and then again over to the west. So that added about 20 additional acres to this real estate that's on the north side of State Road 32. And it was about 26 acres that was added. So the purpose of this PUD amendment is to bring the Town Road Crossing PUD more into the format of current PUDs that we see here in Westfield today in the 2025 situation. Also incorporate the State Road 32 overlay standards on the retail portion of the development, which was not a requirement back in 2007. So we're bringing in those State Road 32 overlay standards and specifically as well for the architecture for those commercial buildings that will be along there. And then also address some of the other development visions that the town has had for this general area. If you can go to the next slide, Ryan. The original PUD had an alignment for Town Road that was much different than what we're showing now, because back in 2007, some of the vision was a little bit different for the city. That vision has really come into focus now in 2025 on where they want the location of Town Road and the extension of Town Road to occur. And so that's been incorporated into this amendment proposal to the plan, which shows the Town Road extension, the way it would align up with the school's parcel, as well as alignment of the Midland Trail. And so those are three of the big components that we're adding into the PUD in 2025 to make it more current. The other aspects of the PUD amendment is we're limiting some of the retail and commercial uses that would have been permitted under the 2007 version. We're making it less auto-centric by eliminating some of those uses, such as car wash, automobile rental businesses. Some of those types of businesses have been eliminated from the permitted use table. Also, as staff indicated, one of the modifications we made from the April Plan Commission meeting until tonight dealt with standalone drive-through restaurants. The original PUD did not have a limit on the number of standalone drive-through restaurants. We had an original number in the PUD amendment, but then after reflecting on it further and having some meetings with the mayor and administration, we have made an adjustment to that aspect of the PUD amendment that we're proposing to you. And the language we've included would limit the number of standalone drive-through restaurants to 8, whereas the original PUD didn't have a limit on that. We've also limited in the 2025 amendment to only one fuel station use on that southern portion of the retail component. Of course, in this area in gray is the retail commercial component I'm talking about. And again, the original PUD in 2007 didn't have a limitation necessarily on the number of fuel stations that could be on the real estate. So we wanted to add that in there. Also, as I talked about, making sure the PUD amendment for 2025 brings in the State Road 32 overlay standards. Another modification that we made to the PUD since April, and you heard some of the discussion at the April meeting, there are some landowners that live along Little Eagle Creek Avenue in this general location. There's a couple, many different parcels, 4, 5, or 6. And they are directly adjacent to the tree preservation area that will be in our common area for the Town Road Crossing development. And based on the neighborhood meeting discussions that we had prior to going to Plan Commission in April, we've added some language to the PUD that would allow the developer to sell, to transfer title to some of that common area that is just on the west side of these other parcels to those landowners if they come to terms with Paul in a separate purchase agreement. So we wanted to make sure that there was a mechanism in the PUD amendment that would allow for that transfer and be acknowledged in the PUD, because right now we're calling that area out as common area. But we thought that was an important consideration for some of the residents who attended our neighborhood meeting and spoke.
Jim, before you move on from that topic, correct me if I'm wrong, still planning a tree preservation easement regardless of
Yes,
ownership?
absolutely correct.
Right, that would still be maintained over that area.
Absolutely, and thank you for pointing that out. With that said, that's a fairly general overview. I know some weren't here at the April Plan Commission meeting, but I wanted to go through some of those details because this is a fairly unique situation, because this property was zoned in 2007. It was never developed. There was a lot of changes from that point in time to now, and those are considerations that Paul and his team took into account in presenting this proposal amendment to you. With that said, we'll be open to answer any questions or begin the dialogue with the board. And if after the dialogue you feel that we've satisfactorily responded to your questions and comments, we would respectfully ask to go back to the full Plan Commission on July 7th, but that's your prerogative. I only mentioned that. With that said, appreciate you allowing me to go through that summary overview.
And I'm gonna Paul Rio with Platinum Properties. I wanted to give about 5 minutes of additional oversight on this. With Town Road, this is Town Road today, this is Westgate over here, so the connection of Town Road up to 32 is important to us, the school and the town. This red indicates about 6 acres of right-of-way that gets donated to the town as part of the plat, so there won't be any need to purchase additional right-of-way to make Town Road work. The reason why it sweeps like this, you might know, is to cross the creek, we have to go at a perpendicular at the narrowest point. So you can kind of bring it out and cross it. This bridge is probably $10 million. The city has 2027 earmarked to construct the town road from this point up to here. Platinum probably will end up building this piece in anticipation of them coming later, because this is our entryway into the neighborhood coming from Town Road. The product lines, the golden colored lots are large, 80-foot, 90-foot lots reminiscent of Bent Creek, which is out there next to Woodwind. Houses will be $750,000 to $1 million. The yellow line indicates in this position the Midland Trail, which someday we, in discussions with the city, have talked about either an over or under State Road 32 to connect it to the school site. So this yellow line is the Midland. This yellow line is Little Eagle Creek Trail. The piece down here is the landowner who owns this land. Brian Cardinal has his estate. So we're turning that, we stub it for the future, turning it back into the neighborhood. But this is another piece of the master plan for the Little Eagle Creek Trail, Midland Trail, and Monon that the city is looking forward to having all completed. We have questions here. This blue hashed area is a Mr. Routerbush who we've yet to come to terms with. We still are trying to come to terms with him, but if not, this actually is not included in the legal description of the PUD. We'd come back later and plug that back in, if he so, we've offered him considerable sum.
Sorry, so to confirm on that, that was one of the, so that has been removed from, until you come to terms, that's been removed from anything we might vote on.
Exactly.
Anything you're talking
I know
about.
that was a big deal for
excludes-
him, okay,
That
thank you.
excludes Mr. Routerbush.
Thank
So we would probably end up with some stub streets and work around them with utilities,
Sure.
I'm sure down the road when there are other things start to happen out there, he may be enticed, to move on, but. So we've got commercial, retail gray, townhomes facing along the Midland. These are an area of alley loaded houses in the 600 to 700 range, reminiscent of Midland or Symphony or, Ambleside, which is a Carmel neighborhood. So you're looking at, 60 units there of alley loaded, and then the custom larger lots. So with that, I just wanted to give you a couple more pieces, the right of way, the trails, and the land uses. Before you had questions. And I know Mr. Routerbush spoke at the Plan Commission and was wanting to make sure he wasn't included. So I wanted to clarify that.
Okay, We're gonna open this up to, oh, okay,
I'll start.
Mrs. Carlson.
So the entrance from Town Road to 32, will there be a stoplight there or a roundabout there or something that controls that traffic flies by? I
We
mean,
expect that to be a stoplight.
Okay,
And we're in discussions with NDOT about 1, 2, 3 points. This is Centennial Road, which comes down and tees in, but the school's using that as their primary entrance road. So there's a thought that in the future that would extend, that sort of back burner. This is a discussion with NDOT. The original discussion was right in and right out only to start with until the area grew to more warrants. So that would be a restricted entrance to some degree, and this would be a light, this would be signalized. And town would continue north,
okay,
in the
now,
future.
will Little Yoka Creek be abandoned then, or will that section still go?
That's a
Out to
John
the
Nail
road.
question, it's still gonna stay there, we don't have the road on here, but.
Yeah, it's not, it's over
Might go to the
here.
But it's gonna end up, it's staying, I mean, there's homes on it, and it'll probably end up in some type of a entrance off of here to Little Eagle Creek, coming into a separate,
John had
Entry
mentioned at
point.
a previous meeting, whether it was APC or council, that there's a possibility of Little Creek still going into town or them just becoming stub streets at the end there.
You
So it
cut
doesn't
through
go
enough
away.
town to Eagle Creek, so now you're taking town
so
across.
this might come up here and come in here, you know, and have an access point onto town. And then the island would be cut, so they had an access. But I haven't seen the final engineering plans, but they're gonna have to accommodate it.
It's still
Yeah, it'll be
TBD.
interesting to see what you guys do, because it's really, there's a safety issue getting out from Little Eagle Creek onto 32.
Yeah, especially up here, I mean, this is where it comes
People
out
just
now,
fly through there.
we were talking about that this morning.
Who's next? Dr. Keen.
Here's a question, how many standalone restaurants or fast food are in here?
But we don't have any, there's a limit, there's room for about 14 or 15 outlots, we've limited standalone drive-through restaurants to 8.
8. So do those require fewer parking spaces than regular restaurants?
Yeah. And part of our dilemma, Dr. Keen, is everything has a drive-through now, you know, if it's a CVS, if it's a, you know, a Texas Roadhouse for pickup at DoorDash, I mean, everything gets a drive-through, but what the focus was on was, you know, Burger King's, McDonald's, Taco Bell's, it's like a standalone drive-through restaurant, you know, was what we were trying to limit. So we've cut that down.
I don't think we consider pickup windows as a drive-through for the purpose of this conversation.
Purpose of this conversation, same with like a CVS has a pharmacy window, banks have drive-ups, but that's not what we're really focusing on. It's
When you develop this, are you anticipating retail being developed first, or no particular order of any kind of thing with development?
I think the timing, at least today, is that this product line here would be first. You know, we would get Town Road entrance here, this, and if the Rowdebush piece doesn't come in, maybe a section of townhomes and we'd go this way. This is just gonna wait for the market. You know, I think with this connection here, you know, you've got an obvious fuel station site at one piece or the other, we only get one. So that would probably be early, but as far as like building out the retail, you know, we're a mile and a half from the last retail on 32, so this is not imminent, like we're gonna see 8 uses next year or anything like that.
I think we had a session where 32 NDOT is only worried about 32 west, 32 east, they're not worried about 32 west, so this is gonna be 2 lanes for a
Long
heck of a
time.
long time.
Yeah,
So
10
with
years.
the increased traffic, it could be a problem that develops too quickly.
yeah. Well, and obviously the school timing is critical to all this as well, depending on how big that gets and what they do with that campus, but, you know, I would imagine, and Wayne has had some meetings with NDOT, but this will end up being a full light down the road. If they say no early, you know, 5 years from now, it'll be warranted.
Especially considering the school, obviously, facility and transportation, facility and school.
Mr. Khan.
If I recall correctly, when we were sitting at the session,
The trail was brought up about from some neighbors saying that why can't it be on the other side of the lake? Because they feel that the
them, it's too close to the trees and going in there would be an issue, you know, and would take away from some wildlife, or I'm trying to recall the
Right.
comments that were there. To me, I see how this makes sense, but I would like you to speak to that point, you know, so that we don't write those people off altogether for, you know, without explanation.
Well, there are 6 residents along here that come off Little Eagle Creek and have long lot lines, but they're stopped right here. This is our property line, so there's some lots that strip out like this. And their concern was, you know, we want this as far away from us as possible. Our concern is, we like it where it is because it's a part of the Little Eagle Creek Trail, which is following Eagle Creek, and it's for the benefit of all of Westfield, not just us. It's gonna connect throughout Westfield eventually. The compromise was, we agreed that we would sell them some land if they wanted to protect their flank, so to speak. So what happened is, a couple of landowners said, well, would you allow us to buy the other side? You know, buy to the edge of the trees, because the trees come out here pretty far. And of course, you know, we were like, yes, but Jim reminded us, well, if we make it common area and our common area percentage is in the PUD, we just can't start peddling off pieces, because our common area percentage wouldn't meet the ordinance. So he's added to the ordinance, we have an exception that we can sell off some pieces along here to the neighbors if they, you know, wanna pay a
Even if
price.
it's written as common area, we can still sell it and it'll still count for both.
And as Kevin said, it'll still be in a tree preservation area.
Yep.
And it's all in floodway.
And so
there's
they
really
can't
nothing
do
they can
anything
to it.
else with that, it would stay trees throughout.
I think that, you know, there were particularly 2 people who were like, people are gonna get on the trail and come over here and mess around in our woods, can we buy the woods? What they plan to do is put up like a farm fence on their piece of the woods, so they could protect it. That's 2 of the 6, there's only 2 who've actually called me about wanting to buy some of that land.
Okay.
But it's, the green line here is the flood zone. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the flood fringe, this line here is the flood zone, meaning nothing can be built in here, whether they own it or we own it or not. And we always try to keep the trail out of the floodway also, cause, you know, you have a spring like we've had, nobody can use it, cause it gets inundated. So we've opted to leave it where it is, it's like 3 football fields away from these folks through the woods. It's not as if we're putting it in, you know, against the back of their house.
That makes sense, but in terms of the flooding, you're saying if, say we have heavy rains and pour, it would either go into that retainage pond or it would go into the other side, would it be engulfed in water, is I guess what I'm asking?
This area, these dashed lines here, that's the floodway, that means that has a potential in a 100-year storm to get water in it.
Okay,
The flood fringe is the light green, that can be modified, you can trade land in a flood fringe, we could fill this in and give a little bit more there, or, you know, you can, as long as you give the same acreage of capacity.
okay.
So there is rational, there's a method to the madness here, that says, we didn't wanna move it over here behind these houses on the other side of the lake. And, you know, had their houses come to here, you know, if we were talking about we're running in their backyard, I'd have more empathy. At this point, I'm like, I'm 300 yards from you through the woods.
No, I just don't see that being good, I mean, that's a retainage pond, you have to have that for the houses to drain into, so it doesn't make sense to me any other way, to be honest. I just wanted to understand that a little bit better in case somebody else were to bring it up down the line.
Sure.
Yeah, so I guess I'll jump in now. So it's been a couple months, and when it was first introduced and getting eyes on this, I had relatively a positive opinion. Unfortunately, at this time, I have now relatively negative opinion. Again, it's been a couple months, and my hard issue previously was what Omar was just talking about, was the trail, because today the Little Eagle Creek Trail goes behind my house, and taking into consideration what the homeowner said, which has been alluded to, as well as my experience living on the trail, I think it's relatively easy change to move the Little Eagle Creek Trail to be on the other side of the pond, to add that further distance. And then also it becomes a more usable amenity for the future homeowners there as well. Again, with it being right on the other side of my property line, I go out there all the time, that's how I get to the trail. So I see that as an asset for not just the future homeowners, but of course the community, us having a new trail opportunity there as well. And then I think where we went backwards since the last meeting, the introduction, and it wasn't really on my radar before, I was just like, oh, great, that's a check in the right direction of further limiting the possible drive-throughs. I believe the number was 2 previously, and now we've gone back up to 8. So whether it's somewhere in between or we go back to the two, it's just a non-starter for me at this time. And I gotta use an example from as recently as last week at the council meeting where another kind of apples to apples comparison, we had our Harvest Trails, David Weekly looking to do an amendment, and that was almost a split vote. So I don't know necessarily where the other guys are on this particular project, but I do know density is always a topic of concern with just all the counselors in general. But just, I can only speak for myself, me personally, it's moving the trail and then finding either going back to the 2 or finding the equilibrium between the 2 and 8 that we're currently proposing today. So those are my issues.
Alright, Mr. Jorge, you have some words of wisdom for us?
Oh, I have words, I don't know if I connect them with wisdom necessarily, but as I recall it from looking, and I don't have the GIS with all of the data on it in front of me now, from the creek to the west where the PUD terminates, I believe there's about a 20-foot rise. Somebody's going to pull that up for us here.
There we go. What service?
Look at that.
Do it multiple times a day, so I'm pretty good at it right now.
And you have to find the site and get the contour lines.
Sorry, get it safe.
But I always get kind of concerned when we're looking at a image that depicts detention in a lot of places and we're early in the process. How good of a sense do we have that with the kind of fall that this has east to west, that we're really gonna be able to put water where you're planning on putting water?
We've gone through some pretty good engineering because of the topo, and we've got the ponds, you know, along the creek basically. And then an outlet that's just south of the property line. You can scroll up, just go up that way a little, we've got an outflow. Creek is probably here. Trying to get my bearings on card.
There is one that appears to be kind of around the middle of the site. But there's also 2 detention ponds that are more west.
Yeah, this is Austin. So we come over here. But our ponds are, I think, here and here are the big ones. We've got a couple smaller ones up there that are pretty localized for, you know, dirt, requirement to build the pads. And I think they're internal to the neighborhood, if you go back to the site plan. The primary, these are, you know, the last before they go off this way and leave the site. So this will be much higher, you know, than the other. It's got about, from here to here falls about 18 feet.
Right, that's what I was recalling from looking at the maps
Yeah.
myself.
So we
I was-
got everything flowing this way. This one will probably terrace, these will probably all be walkouts to step down. And then we've got these two, and possibly there's, we think we might need a third just down here for, what do we call it? Siltation, you know, BMP to get the sediment out. So it's gotta hit 2 lakes before it's discharged to the creek.
I just trying to establish a comfort level that we're not gonna get 6 months down the road here and then the neighborhood design has to change substantially because water can't end up going where water is supposed to go according to this.
Well, we've been a
Water's
lot more
lazy and
careful
dumb.
since we went to Noblesville and showed a site plan, and then when we were done, we had a little pond tucked in the corner of the site that we didn't need. It didn't drain, didn't need the dirt. And we finished the project and they came out and said, "Where's your other pond?" I said, "Well, we didn't need it." They said, "Well, you showed it on the map, so put it in." Cost us like $250,000 and it didn't drain anything. It's just a pond, so.
You're not gonna hear
So-
that from me.
Yeah.
I just wanna make sure that that general layout is something we're pretty comfortable with.
Right, so we
and
get
we're not gonna have
comfortable
to
now
do
before
over
we
here.
put them in, so we don't have to build them.
So this whole PUD is getting a do-over right now, and I don't wanna have to look forward to doing over the do-over.
That's a good question.
Because there is an uncharacteristically large amount of elevation change in a relatively short distance for Washington Township, where we're generally really flat.
No, that's a good point. I mean, going back to previous plat committee meeting and then a prior project last year with Winterberg, and I've already stated my discomfort since that's been approved and the new plot plan with that. It's just a really good point, Jorge, that you gotta make sure it gets finalized now, not something later down the road.
Do you anticipate adding soil to that area, like building it up a little bit before you do the ponds? 'Cause that's
Well,
what's
we'll
nice
terrace
there.
the site so that we'll have, there'll be areas that get graded so that we step it down all the way to the creek.
Okay, that makes sense. That's the one thing, my concern is I can see your floodway zones, but, water doesn't cooperate sometimes.
Right.
Even when you want it to, so that would be my only concern, and it would go
It's lazy, it's
a
lazy and
lot further
stupid.
than you expected.
That's part of the science, part of the art and science of development.
I'm not
The engineering people, the engineering guys have told us that's where we gotta put them.
Mr. Khan?
I still wanna go back to what you were thinking in terms of, cause maybe I don't have the right understanding about this, but do you think the trail could go behind the homes and still the homes would be able to drain into the ponds? Is what I'm thinking, I don't know, is that what you're thinking, Victor? Cause I wanna understand like what exactly you visualize on this.
Yeah, so right here, just zooming in right about where the arrow is. So this is kind of almost again an apples to apples comparison. You see the Little Eagle Creek Trail that has been to this day dedicated to the city. It is behind all of the homes and I'm around there somewhere. But it just adds that further barrier to the existing properties, whether it be using this as an example or going back to Town Road Crossing. It can be done.
Okay.
Of having the trail usable for both the community and residents, and then also the further buffering using the pond, and then preserving as many trees as possible, so.
Thank you.
I'm not sure, the question is, if these are called, I'm back to the retail area, can office space go in things that are designated retail?
Yes.
Generally, yeah, I mean, I think unless specified otherwise.
Well, like an office complex that was down between Ditch and Spring Mill that we had a couple months ago. Close to Sonoma backed up to Sonoma.
Yeah,
If something like that would develop here,
trail side.
it would work okay with zoning the way it's stated here.
GB, so yeah, I mean,
Yeah, so
within
yeah,
reason, I mean, there's some excluded uses within the ordinance.
but yeah, generally
But-
speaking, office uses,
Some
I think
nuance.
when that one gets a little bit more into like a flex industrial kind of
Right.
warehousing.
I don't think
kinda
we have
de-
authorization for that style
Yeah.
of use, or type of use rather.
Okay, I'm just
But-
looking at employability
Yeah.
as well as service sector.
Sure,
type
sure,
stuff.
yeah, there could be office, medical office, a variety of
Dr.
those
Dennis
types of
had
things by right.
all those, small garden offices.
It does bring up another good point though, Dr. Keen, that as we're considering trail side or just other development along State Road 32, that I think it's pretty well known at this point that as we are moving further west, trying to be contrary to what's already been permitted today with a plethora of drive-through and restaurants, fast food, so on and so forth, as we get closer to just undeveloped territory, we would prefer just general business opportunity for, say, headquarters or, whatever of the sort, office space, as opposed to constant drive-through. So that goes back to the issue of needing to have further limitations than just saying, hey,
Can I help address that? If we can go to the first exhibit, the slide that Jim presented. I think this is one of the reasons we took a step back and made sure that we met with staff again and delayed and didn't go to the last workshop meeting in this one. The area in red is the area outline that's part of the existing PUD. Brian Cardinal owns that real estate. The area along State Road 32 down to the Midland is zoned to permit commercial uses, and they have a plan that's not engineered, but engineered similarly, that shows they have the ability to do 13 outlets and fuel. And when we sat down with staff and we're adding nearly twice as much frontage, because we're adding frontage here and we're adding frontage here, we settled on the potential of 8. 13 would be permitted by right today, and Brian's saying, why would I? Why would I go and sell off the residential to the south only to make these restrictions on the commercial to get less than what I'm authorized to do under today, which outlots and outlot users have a significant value. So we're adding the parcel here, you can see the frontage that exists today and the frontage that we're adding. We're adding this frontage to get over to Centennial to add up the connection to Centennial. They're also authorized the townhome dwellings, but they would be segregated in just in the space along this vicinity. So we're not increasing, we're not actually decreasing what's authorized today by right. They could file a development plan and move forward. And would ask for the Plan Commission and Council's consideration of reducing it down to 8. And those being those drive-through uses that would be like a fast food type of situation. While we're adding all this additional frontage, this is primarily in the flood zone. I don't think you'll see anything further to the east, adjacent to the flood zone. It kind of clips off right in this vicinity. That existing building would remain. And then here is Centennial, and then east of, or west of Centennial rather, that area is zoned AGSF1 today. I think there's another business that's out there that does brick or stone work as you get further removed to the west. But I did want to make that point that that we're restricting the use of drive-throughs to less than what's permitted today. And consistent with the discussion we've had with staff about limiting and not adding where there might be drive-throughs.
So what is the expectation or the plan, if there is one already formed, on how these 8 sites will be connected? They're not all going to expect to have 32 access of their own.
Oh, absolutely not.
So
If we go to the next
how are we
slide-
going to-
If you go to the next slide. This shows the layout, and it's along these areas here, along this frontage. None of these uses would have individual access. This is a right in, right out, and the only full access is when you get over here to Town Road. So Town Road down to what would be 174th or 5th, 775th Street would be accessed into this commercial area, and these uses would have access off of that frontage road that would connect to our west and over to Town Road, and then access here. So no individual cuts other than the right in, right out, and the lineup with where the school is constructing Town Road in the future.
So they will be fronting 32, and that's where your front door and best visibility will be, but essentially you're approaching them from the back door.
Right, like,
I mean, that's just a big gray blob, so I wanted to,
right.
throw in a little clarity here that
Equivalent
that's.
of Tournament Trail where Chick-fil-A and
So we're used to like Ortho Indy and where the post office is and those other uses, it's similar to that configuration where none of them have individual access to
Right.
to the highway.
But in that area between 32 and where the Midland used to be, Tournament Trail, kind of the road is halfway in between there.
And it is, cause right in this this is the trail. This is the existing alignment of where the rail bed is, and on the north side, we've laid in the townhomes rather than in a solid block in this configuration, laid it out in a manner staff thought was more aesthetically pleasing to the trail rather than all in a line facing, doors facing. Have some situations where there's courtyards and sides of dwellings facing the trail rather than all front doors facing the trail. So this is the trail today and proposed. The townhomes would be along that. The frontage drive, or frontage road located here, and the commercial uses to the north of that.
Okay, and that's fine. As you're explaining it now, I realize that as I'm looking at that image, what I was mistakenly interpreting it to mean is that the townhomes were south of the trail, not north of it. So that cuts that significant distance between 32 and the trail down, so they're more viable size for those retail uses.
Yeah, and so picture, if you would, where Goodwill
Yeah.
and the daycare and
Goddard
Goddard School and all the way down to Tractor Supply. So they're, all the backside of them, or south side of them, backside, the south side of them all front the trail. And on the north side is that 175th Street, then across the street is Ortho Indy and other uses. So this is the Ortho Indy and other uses area. This is the backside of that 175th Street, and the trail runs behind as a transition between the townhomes and the single family. These homes would all face the trail, and the single area here, the homes would back. And it's due to site constraints here that they would have the backs of those houses along there because this is the only logical location for a street to connect into the development because of the flood zone, as you can see it here dashed in green, and the distance between the trail and that flood zone.
John, welcome to the better of your two meetings tonight. We're glad to have you in Westfield instead of Carmel. You can let them know I said that. And maybe, or this is just a question for the group. I've got a long list of things. So if you do acquire the Rowdebush property, is it your intention to, cause let's say you're correct, by right today, sounds like you could fit up to 13, and I understand that this, 13 versus 8 versus 2, obviously we're moving I think the right direction of what some folks are talking about, but if you acquire the Rowdebush property today, is the 8 drive-through location still gonna you're not gonna try to add a 9th in that space because it's new, potentially out of the plan?
I heard Paul nod yes. It would only be 8.
Okay.
8's the cap.
Okay,
With or
okay,
without
which I
Rob.
appreciate, thank you for clarifying that. My other question before I get on my soapbox is, remind me, because it's been a while since y'all been here. Tell me the products for the homes and what the ranges are for each section of what they are, how much they're proposed to be.
I got some exhibits at the back.
Thank you, okay, I didn't go that far in that document, thank you. I didn't,
That's larger.
Okay.
Area A is the largest homes. These are, we use Bed Creek as the best example out there today.
Yeah.
Front loaded, 800,000 to $1 million houses. These are lots are gonna be 150 to $175,000 lots. So you're looking at large, single family, kind of bread and butter stuff for Westfield. Then as we go into the B area, you'll see the fronts along the trail because they're all alley loaded. So we've got rear garages for this product line. There are a number of builders now who do it. 10 years ago, nobody did it. Now everybody has a product that fits this. So we'll be looking at all these variety of different products. We've got some Lennar, some Estridge, some Weekly in here because we haven't signed a builder, but they all build that kind of alley loaded stuff. Then the townhomes, 2-story variety. Once again, we put 4 or 5 examples in of what we've seen around town. But they would be 2-story, there's a site plan that's got little courtyards, they turn, so instead of having them all line the trail and have, 90 doorways facing the trail, we've got little pocket parks and we turn them in little H configuration. The product line, these townhomes today in Westfield, and that's today, are probably $375 to $425. So we're talking 2 years from now by the time we get them up and running. The zoning takes us maybe July, August into September. We're not moving any dirt this year. So next year, so you're not seeing houses here till late 26 into 27. So I'm guessing nothing in the townhome area is under 400. Alley loaded stuff's in the 6s, the single families 8 and up. That's the best guess today. Those townhomes are 1,500 to 1,800 square feet, 2 and 3 bedroom, 2-car garage. We've kind of run the gamut with the 3-story. You've seen the 3-story townhomes everywhere, and all the stairs are kind of a declining factor for the buyer. It's a lot of stairs stacked. So now the 2-story has become a lot more popular.
And I wanted to point out, I think, Victor, you might have brought this up at the plan commission meeting or the council introduction, where the change to the ordinance is 270 homes are entitled and allowed today, and we're going to 296. So yes, that's more homes, but we're adding the 26 additional acres. So it's only coincidental that there's 26 more homes, but 26 additional acres. And I think to layer on top of the question you asked about Rowdebush extends all the way back to the Midland. So in all likelihood, there would be that 170. There would be that area that would south of 175th Street that would potentially be townhomes as well to follow that pattern along the frontage.
Yeah, right. Which I remember when Mr. Rowdebush was here, he was upset that those were in there, thinking that he is being pushed into something. I remember that part of the conversation, and it's just for dramatic effect.
Instead of answering the question, what might it look like?
Yes.
We answered that, but in doing so, I think we brought concern.
Yeah, well, and you guys solved that, so we appreciate that. I'm gonna start with the trail. I think I agree. Well, first of all, we start with the southwest or southeast portion of the property that you're talking about potentially selling some of that land off. Initially, I was concerned about that language, specific to, you know, if you sell that off, it still gets to count as part of your open space. I think hearing what you guys have talked about, I think I'm more comfortable with that today than I originally, actually, if you could just stay with the map, I appreciate it. Sorry, I don't need the
trying my
language.
best.
No, I appreciate it, thank you. And so I think hearing your explanation, I think I'm a little more comfortable with that. I think I would be even more comfortable with it if the trail was closer, I think, to the homes. Though it doesn't really, it's not the biggest hang up for me, but I agree. And that's gonna bring me to my next point. The reason I think that should be closer is because, and I harp on this all the time, these are nice homes, maybe this is in between, Chatham's on the high end and that kind of stuff. There's no other amenities here, to my knowledge, correct?
No, there aren't amenities, there's pool house.
There are,
Yeah.
okay.
The amenity area.
I've missed this conversation. Okay, they're just not very clearly defined. Okay, all right. Well,
Yeah,
then
we've
that,
got-
Here, let me.
There's a list of what the amenities are.
sure. Okay, now I see, all right,
Includes pool house,
Yeah,
play,
okay.
sport courts,
all right.
gathering
Um,
areas.
So I think that then for me solves that particular issue. Let's go up to let's talk about the drive-throughs for a second. I think what I would hate to see, I think you're right, I think we need to find some common ground here because, if we blew this up today, someone could come in and build, 13 drive-throughs and that would really be terrible. What I just can't envision is like 8 Wendy's in a row. And how bad I think that would look in an area that's really not that big comparatively. And so I just have concern with that number or what may be there. Now, maybe again, maybe it won't be, as bad as I'm making it out to be, but it seems like 13's way worse. 13 is way worse. It's just such a small area and to have thinking that there would be potentially 8 Wendy's, Culver's, McDonald's, Taco Bell, the list goes on, right? In such an area. I mean, maybe that's just the way it's gonna turn out, but
The interesting thing is you said a small area. And when we look at the plan, just remember this 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and we have a half mile
no, I understand.
Yeah. Frontage along. So it's not like just the area in front of
Sure.
Meyer,
Right,
like that short segment where their gas station and Spring Mill or through India. It's a lengthy segment, or
Sure.
more lengthy than those situations there.
sure. No, I appreciate the context. And so, I mean, at this point, I don't think I'm as, hard against this as, not that I came in against it, but I had a significant concern from our Wednesday meeting, especially on some of that language. I think if I had to choose one thing that I would love to see changed out of all of it, would be making that trail a little bit closer. And then I think it would alleviate some of that concern of those neighbors to the southeast. If that trail's not so close to them, they're much less apt people coming down in that direction. But I know also it could help you guys out maybe if you get to sell some of that property and recoup some of that, some of that cost. So from the business perspective, I understand it.
And so I'm clear that the segment that you're talking about, can you scoot up just a little bit on the exhibit? Can you show more there? Is this segment here? And
Sorry,
consider
say that
pulling it around to the backside?
I would say almost all of it.
Cause this we're like 800 plus feet away and this is 300 plus feet away from the property line.
Yeah.
I mean, you're thinking here as well as here, or?
I think that, no, I appreciate that. I think that's a conversation that we should definitely think about, because it makes it more accessible to these folks. I get it, I think what I'm trying to do here is make this more accessible to people who live there and to, as best as possible, and maybe this is as best we can get, to alleviate some of the concern for folks that still have to live here when this goes in. And so I'm trying to find a balance. Maybe this is the balance. But if I had to choose one thing that I would change about it, I think even if I'm ignoring the concerns of the folks who aren't gonna be living on this property, for those that are gonna be living on this property, making it, more usable and accessible for them. And I think, what Victor brought up as a template was a pretty good part of the conversation, so.
Victor, you'd like to see it behind both lakes?
Yep, entirety, because as we were just talking here, another thought popped in my head that as I'm walking on the current iteration of Little Eagle Creek Trail, down the road, however many years later it's been since Water's Edge has been built, as well as Williams Trace, Now there's issues with maintenance because on my stretch, not so much, but when you get up into Williams Trace, that stretch of the Little Eagle Creek Trail is on the opposite side of a pond, and no one knows who's taking care of it, which has really been no one. So that becomes just another issue in the long list of things, and yeah, kind of what John was just penciling here of just where that hump is, continue it down to the L, have it go all the way down between the ponds. Yep.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I didn't think I had the same understanding at the beginning, but I appreciate the clarification, and I'm probably gonna defer and support my colleague here because he's got the experience, you know, in dealing with those types of things.
Not a hill I'm gonna die on.
I do agree that maintenance could be an issue if it's so far
Which
away.
translates into, we're likely to consider changing.
For what it's worth.
That's right.
The entire room is not of that mindset. I'm thinking that it's pretty nice where it is. And speaking to the concern of the residents to the east, is it not also true that the couple of football fields and then some, they would also then have to wade their way through the creek? It's not like this is unfettered access that you can just wander straight across this flat, dry land and get from this trail to the Little Eagle Creek
Couple
neighborhood.
hundred feet of trees.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely would have to try.
And what you don't see on the plan, Mr. Jorge, that yellow line that is the trail rests very close to the existing tree line. And we thought the tree line was a reasonable identification for where to go and not to go.
It's something nice to walk past.
Cause the trail, you're gonna walk on the trail, and if you wanna walk, I mean, you're gonna know where the separation between this neighborhood is and the space that is private potentially at that southeast corner. And knowing it's the tree line, and the trail demarks it would introduce more of the public into all the space rather than diminishing potentially, but, it's a good discussion.
Well,
I think it'd be a much nicer trail to walk on where it is.
And I guess when we say private, I mean, some of this potentially, because right, you've only has spoken to, you said 2 of the 6 property owners that might be interested in extending, which means there's gonna be sections that are private and, I mean, I guess they're still kind of private, but they're a little less private because they're part of this neighborhood that the trail goes through, right?
Yeah.
And so then again, maybe this is just a bunch of hoopla about nothing as Mr. Jorge may indicate, because I agree that, you know, looking past the trees would be, you know, lovely, but I'm thinking about what's to come. So anyway, I would love for y'all to consider it, but as my colleague indicated, there's different thinking on both sides, and we look forward to seeing what you come up with.
And not to beat dead horse on this particular subject, but another real world implementation just pops into my head, talking about the trees. So we talked about the just overall general maintenance that has become an issue for not necessarily my neighborhood, but the neighborhood to the north, Williams Trace. Actually, Water's Edge is somehow responsible for it, but anyway, so future maintenance implications, but then also visually, yes, having a trail along the tree line is typically nice. But one of the storms we had, say, last year or the year before, we actually had trees that fell down onto the path that goes down, dips between Grist Mill and Water's Edge. And I was the one who had to move them. So there's kind of a darn if you do, darn if you don't kind of situation that when a path is so tucked away, well, who's generally maintaining it? And it's typically just a resident comes by and is like, oh, there's a tree in the middle of here, and typically it's pretty heavy to move as well. So just talking about the real world implications.
Now,
Maybe
isn't it the
HOA
case that the Little Eagle Creek Trail is part of the Westfield Parks Department?
It is, but in the moment, I think particularly that moment was of a weekend, it's like, okay, I'm just gonna do something, cause I'm not gonna let this sit here for the entirety of the weekend.
Well, I was just thinking about your situation over there, that really wasn't an HOA issue.
No, since it has been dedicated to the city now, but yeah.
But is this HOA or Westfield Parks?
It would be Westfield Parks,
The trail in
Trail
yellow.
would be
the yellow ones, yeah.
linear park.
Dr. Keen,
Okay, I've gotta go back to drive-throughs again. Because I'm visualizing the north side of 32 to go from Culver's to Taco Bell to McDonald's to Portillo's to Chick-fil-A. There's 5 of them with a little breakup because of the car wash and some roads. I guess I worry a little bit about the internal safety if there's not some kind of limitation to no more than 2 together or something like that, cause turning in here, turning out there, driving through here, driving through there, it just seems like it's a little bit of a cluster to have all those there without some kind of separation between them.
Yeah, and we've added, to help restrict and delineate that, we've added that there could be a fuel station, but only one. And in addition to that, the following uses would be prohibited, no matter where they are in that space. There are no car washes, automobile rental, pawn shop, tattoo parlor, tobacco shop, billiard parlor. Cemetery monument sales, I can't remember who we got that from, but it was added as prohibited. And truck and trailer sales, so the car wash type of use is a use that's prohibited beyond being restricted under the number of on the site.
I guess I'm just thinking if you can superimpose 8 different fast, drive-through things on there and see how close they are to each other and how that affects the flow of traffic, so that they're spread out, so it's not this monumental cluster of fast food places on half of it and whatever is on the other half. It just seems like we'd wanna spread them out from a visual impact.
Kevin, sorry, right, that's it. Question though, just from my understanding, isn't this decided by engineers for traffic and flow and this and that and the other, like, is that in our purview or is that, cause I'm just relying on these engineers that they would have it figured out.
Yeah, I mean, so city engineers do look at traffic flow, traffic circulation, make sure that, internal, well, they're primarily concerned, I think, with access, like from the perimeter. I think they will look at an internal circulation pattern and make sure that something is moving
And they have their parking
efficiently,
requirements.
or
Each use has a certain
requirements.
minimal parking.
Yeah. So they're looking at it from that perspective. I don't,
A couple of
I don't know
standards
from
that
a
are,
volume perspective per se, but like. a
So
couple
what
of
I'm saying
standards
is,
that
do
are
we
also-
question that and say, oh, okay, no, they've come up with that, but I don't know, like, or do we say that's their thing and that's their thing? I'm asking for my own
Let me answer that this way.
education.
We rely on the engineers to advise us,
Okay.
right? So.
but a couple of other things that weren't in ordinances at times, that some of the areas you might be thinking of, like Village Park Plaza or others, were developed where at Village Park Plaza, you don't see hardly any, if at all, connectivity between outlots. The US, the 32 overlay and the standards that are imported on this site require cross connectivity between outlots as a standard that'll be reviewed, so that and landscaping is a lot higher standard today, both along 32 and intermittents in the parking lot. So from a cross connectivity and a landscaping standpoint, aesthetically, it's gonna be a different appearance than and pedestrian connectivity and vehicular connectivity is provided in a way that is a couple generations beyond like a Village Park Plaza. If that kind of appearance is a concern.
I don't go to this Kroger on Spring Mill Road because the parking lot is a potential accident no matter where you go because of the way things move around internally. So I just don't wanna have that recreated someplace else where there's traffic disasters
Understood.
for automobiles and people.
Wouldn't have, like, that situation is where the primary parking field, each individual row dumps into what is a drive aisle adjacent to the outlots. Where here there'd be 175th Street and you'd have restricted access and aligned access where it would be much more limited than you see like in front of Kroger. It can't occur based upon our proposal.
That's right. Well, and to further kind of jump off at least the landscaping, this part of the discussion, this does bring in the State Road 32 overlay requirements, which include additional landscaping between, the development and State Road 32 than what was installed at Kroger and some of these other older developments, so we're seeing that on the west side of 31 along State Road 32, kind of that landscaping being put in and some of it starting to mature now a little bit. So this, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think you wrote that out. I think that's still in here. So we'll see some additional greenery really between the commercial development and 32.
And between the individual uses.
Yeah.
Where today, for instance, there where the car wash is and Portillo's and others, I don't know what that ordinance says, but it's not clear that there's a lot of, between outlots, I think there's some election to reduce the amount of landscaping where this isn't, that's not proposed in this situation.
And I think what both of you have brought up is valid, just overall traffic concerns, but then, and pedestrian safety concerns as well, but then also it just being outside of our purview. So I would say my answer to that is where it would be inside of our purview, going back to the topic kind of full circle, is how many are we permitting? Cause the more you permit, the more issues there might be, whereas the less, then obviously there's less opportunity there for, you know, whatever issue there might come with it. So, you know, we were at 2 before, we're at 8 now, and I just look at other examples, whether it be going down State Road 32, not necessarily where Chick-fil-A, Taco Bell, Portillo's, all that are, because, you know, we got 18 of them there now. But say just a little bit further removed from here would be, again, by me, the grist mill shops, and I think today we're gonna have maybe around 4-ish there. And yes, relatively it's a smaller scope, but at the same time, how much is this gonna be driven by the market today?
And what you just described was driven by the market.
Yes, yeah,
It
and
wasn't
so,
driven, the limitation there wasn't driven by the city, it was driven by the
yeah,
market.
and as we get further out west, it's, well, we already have at least one of everything else, so where are we gonna find it with the market? And just because visually I'm thinking in my head right now, just down the road here, down 32, past the woods, where the new daycare opened up in front of Bonterra, I was surprised this past weekend driving by it, cause it's been up for quite some time now, that there's no users in it yet. There is a drive-through attached to that, but I also see that being kind of the architecture as we're going down State Road 32 near this vicinity of we're having multiple tenant opportunities within one building, similar to where Tropical Cafe Smoothie is, where then the end cap is a drive-through. I'm not seeing standalone locations just based upon what all we already have within the market here within Westfield. So I think that again supports the issue of limiting it in some capacity lower than the 8.
I think we're getting a little bit hung up on an oversimplification of the drive-through issue. The drive-through issue started with Brian Cardinal owns the land now, it's zoned, he can have up to 13. So we sat down, we looked at staff, we talked, we had a layout, we met with EDC. They said, we don't want a TIF drive-throughs anymore.
Mhm.
We said, oh, well, that's news, because we were planning on TIFing this. They said, well, you can have drive-throughs as a part of larger buildings, but you can't have standalone drive-throughs that will TIF. So I can have a 4-bay building and a drive-through, nobody cares. But if I separate them, that was the issue. So then it turned out that the marketplace values the standalone drive-through far more than the value of a TIF. So what we've ignored is we've put in the ordinance, we're not gonna ask for a TIF for this property to extract any of the tax increment to help build it. And the reason for that is it didn't make any sense to go from 13 that you're allowed now to 2, and the 2 was there because the idea was the economic benefit of a TIF would be all right, would offset that. Then we started looking at what the market wants and where the drive-throughs are, whether they be fast food restaurants or other uses. CVS is a good example, banks are good examples, you know, is the number of drive-throughs was, okay, well, we went from 13 and no TIF to 2 with a TIF. Now we've come back to 8 as a compromise between the 2 with no TIF. So there's more to it than just counting up fast food restaurants. It has to do with not attending to, you know, asking the city to give us more money for a TIF to get this done. So then it became an issue in the discussion we had with staff and the administration of what's a drive-through? What are you gonna count, you know, as a drive-through? Is that pickup window a drive-through? Is a bank a drive-through? Is a CVS a drive-through? So then it became, well, we'll regulate it to specifically fast food standalone restaurants. That way, there's still no limit if they wanna put in 2, 3, and 4 unit buildings with drive-throughs. That's, you could do probably 6 of them out there and not even have standalone buildings. So the issue is now, let's let the market will decide whether or not there's demand for 22 more chicken places along 32 or not.
And unfortunately, I think that's the issue, that it's being perceived now that relatively it's a decrease of what is permitted today from the 13 to the 8, but where the mistake was made is first coming to us and saying, oh, we're only gonna permit the 2. And
With a
going back to your prior point of there is no relatively an increase. Well, unfortunately, once I see something, I get it locked in my brain that, oh, I got that 2 number and now we're increasing from it. So that's where my stance is.
If I might, for just a moment, I'm gonna take my commissioner hat off and we'll put my leader hat on as the president of this body. Regardless of how you guys come to us on July 7th or however it comes, the fact that we've had this much discussion on one plot of land typically is a bad omen. And I would guess that there's a split vote coming from this board, but even more so from council. And I don't want to see that. I really don't. This isn't some sort of veiled anything. I'm just starting to get this feeling of a large amount of unease that are gonna come from the commissioners on this board and the council after us. And so I really want you guys to be able to succeed. And so I don't wanna cut off any of my fellow commissioners if they have further comments. I really don't. I wanna cut you guys off if you have further comments. But what I'm starting to feel is, and I felt this before, I've not been present here very long, but for what we've had some items that have been belabored like this, and that sometimes they don't turn out so well. And so I just want to, as a facilitator, want us to really think hard when you guys come back about what can be shifted and changed, not just for this body, but I think for what I think I'm kind of hearing rumbling at council, which I'm sure you guys are just as well aware as I am, if not more aware of than I am. Because I do want this to succeed. I don't want this to come back. I don't want 13 drive-throughs. There's a number of things I don't want as a.
Don't perceive that as a threat. I just.
Yeah, please, yeah.
It's just that there's an example, and the example illustrates this. Would there be 13, whether without regulation and the market would drive it, there could be X. I don't know what X is, but I'm certain it's not more than 13.
And I'm a free market guy. All the market principles you guys have laid down are 100% where I stand. I'm just starting to feel as just the facilitator of this body, taking my commissioner hat off, just being a facilitator and seeing how this has translated into what happens at council. I just wanna make sure that we get this as right as possible when you guys come to us, because I don't want further trouble after us. We've had things that we've sent positive recommendation and been killed. I just don't want that. And so I don't wanna cut off any of my fellow commissioners or Mr. Don Mashewitz or anybody.
For the benefit of that discussion, are there topics other than the number of drive-through uses and the trail location that others would wanna share about the overall request?
If I had to choose what number 1 is, it sounds like it's the drive-throughs. If I was to just.
Other
sorry.
than, so
Other than
are there
that, sorry,
topics other
forgive
than
me.
those two
No.
that would, is there a need for more discussion other than those two topics, and we know what those are and can go back and noodle over them and come back to you with here's where we're at?
Just going
before we
off
ask for a
of
vote?
what my fellow commissioner said here, I would just use last week as an example, the Harvest Trails vote, the amendment there, that they were only adding, say, about the 30-35 lots, and it was nearly a split vote. So if we've got some outstanding issues outside of just an increase in density, I don't really know how to navigate, where we'll see not just at the next APC meeting how that vote might be amongst this body, but going to council.
John, to answer your question, for the record, I have the same 2 topic concerns that you identified, and I don't have any others listed.
Okay. I just wanna make sure if we came back on the
Yeah, for these 2,
7th.
and then we're like.
You don't want a third one.
now.
I get you.
Yeah.
So to my fellow commissioners, other than those 2, any other items you would like the petitioner and staff to noodle over before they come back before us? So I think we've identified where those are.
For us.
Any other comments or from my fellow commissioners or from my developer friends? Okay. Seeing and hearing none, we look forward to seeing you guys back. Lovely discussion. Maybe you do wanna go back to Carmel, I don't know. All right, Kevin, is there any recap you wanna give us, or are you satisfied with the board?
I mean, we just covered it, I
Yep,
think,
okay.
the two items that I have were identified.
Excellent. Thank you all very much for your time, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have two items continued.
They're right next to them.
If I could, I'm gonna finish this meeting up so we can watch the Pacers game.
No,
Gentlemen, we still have some business to finish up. I'm sorry. Thank you so very much for your time, appreciate it. Two items continue to a future meeting, the Jersey 32 PUD and then Trailside Business Center. So I assume, are we gonna see these at the these were both suspended, right? These are not waiting for workshop?
Correct. I believe you should be seeing both of these July 7th as
Yeah,
well.
we're anticipating that.
Don't hold me to
I mean,
that,
if
but I
that
believe so.
changes, we'll let you know.
Gotcha, okay. Reports and comments, plan commission members to each other. Council liaison, Councilor McCarty.
Run through it real briefly. Last week, council meeting, we had a 191st Street update from Director Nail. And then into the items of business was resolution 25-129, establishing ERA area in North Point to include the parcel under ordinance 25-26, which we recently approved. Ordinance 25-27, the Woods Robinson Briggs PUD amendment. That was what we mentioned tonight, or I mentioned tonight about the Harvest Trails, David Weekly. That was approved for 2. Ordinance 25-28, ordinance or Osborne Trails PUD Amendment 6. That was collectively known as the West Fork Amendment. That was approved unanimously. And then under new business, we had the resolution 25-132 East Side Economic Development Amendment, unanimously approved. Resolution 25-135, finding property owners, this is a annual occurrence in substantial compliance for 2025 tax abatement purposes. Resolution 25-136, allocating certain general revenues in RDC in connection with lease rental revenue bonds, and that is all.
Questions for Councilor McCarty? Seeing and hearing none. BZA.
BZA simply had a petitioner who had made a request, asked to withdraw the request, and we had to go through some procedural things in order for that to happen, and we did that, and so the request was withdrawn. Will probably be reintroduced at some point in the future, but that's all we did.
Very good. Plat committee. Oh, sorry, do you have questions?
So that was the Centennial Church.
Uh,
Do we have any prayer that that's gonna come back?
I think,
No pun intended.
Yeah, true, right?
Don't put that in minutes
I'm so
either.
good when I don't think about it.
just let me say, they sent the architect, and when the board members asked questions, wasn't able to really answer a lot of the questions, and I just give you one example. One of the members asked about when they expand again because they're growing, is, well, this church doesn't wanna grow. Well, every church in the United States wants to grow. I mean, that's the mission of
some way,
churches is to grow, so it became kinda convoluted, and I think this is gonna be best. I think if they come back, it would be some of the church members themselves to come back and present, as opposed to sending just an architect to do that.
Well, the hope is that it's somehow or other, maybe legal, everything would have had to have been approved the way they were presenting it, but if it's more context sensitive, would be really great. I mean, what's sitting there today, I remember years ago, listening to Paul Estridge talk about his vision for Centennial, this wonderful entry drive where they were gonna have this very attractive church that fits the area, and that people driving by on Spring Mill Road when this neighborhood gets open are gonna wanna slam on their brakes and say, let's go in and check this place out. What was being proposed to happen to that building was not consistent with something like that, and we don't have anything really that we can stand on to say, no, you can't do it, but I'm sure hoping that some of these concerns that were raised hopefully have been heard, and that whatever they might do, if they're that successful, they can package it better, or just go find themselves a site out here somewhere in a, across the street from where we were just
Those
talking
things
about.
were suggested, Paul's vision was brought up. So, I mean, but again, like here, there are certain things that we're empowered to do and certain things we can't.
We can't,
So,
yeah. And I understand that fully, we're just wondering what your sense of the dialogue might be leading us towards.
I think we should end there. I'm starting to get a little nervous about the line of
Yep.
discussion. Yeah.
Plat committee.
We have no upcoming business and we have no business in the last scheduled date, so nothing to report on.
Staff.
I'd like to introduce lady to my left here, Nicole. Buskill. I get it wrong every time. I pronounce it wrong. New assistant attorney for the city. She's been with us a few weeks now, several weeks now. Will be onboarding more, helping more with some of our boards and commissions, so you'll start to see her face a little bit more here in the future. But we'll kind of slow walk that a little bit, let her get her feet wet and before she's jumping in full time. But if you have anything additional to add, feel free to introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Nicole Buskill. I think I've met a handful of you already. So I'm excited to be here with the city of Westfield. And most recently come from the state of Indiana. I was general counsel for a state agency, but I have practiced in municipal law for a long time. So I'm excited to be here in Westfield and look forward to working with all of you. Welcome.
Welcome to the better side of
Yeah.
government.
That's right.
Anything else? And what a meeting for you to come and see us in action today.
Yeah.
Any other items? Okay, motion to adjourn. So moved. Second. All in favor, so it was McCarty and Khan. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned at 8:16.
Alright, let's go Pacers.
Pacers.
Sometime get 8:30.
Series, baby.
Alright, you got 15 minutes to get home. I got you out.
See you guys.
Go to
Later,
the
Con.
plaza.
Goodbye, good night, see ya.
You have 8:15 or 8:16?
16 was the